The door slammed shut behind her with a hollow, metallic echo, the kind that lingers in the chest long after the sound fades. Inside the cramped apartment, the air was stale, heavy with sweat, and something metallic. Her scream never made it past the walls. Outside, Los Angeles continued breathing, cars passing, radios playing, strangers laughing, unaware that another life was being quietly erased by a man who smiled easily, spoke softly, and would soon be seen on national television asking women about romance. Rodney Alcala learned early how to disappear in plain sight. He was intelligent, articulate, and meticulously groomed. He wore confidence the way others wore coats, comfortably, convincingly. Born in Texas and raised amid instability and abandonment, he developed an early talent for reinvention. By the time he reached adulthood, he could be anyone: a photographer, a student, a charming bachelor, a killer. He drifted through cities and identities, leaving behind fragments of himself that never quite added up to a whole person. Those who met him remembered his eyes, not empty, calculating, always watching. In the late 1960s, he surfaced in Los Angeles as a photography student, roaming the streets with a camera slung casually over his shoulder. He approached young women with ease, offering photo shoots, portfolios, opportunities. He spoke the language of art and ambition, promising visibility in a city that fed on dreams. Many said yes. Some were never seen again. At the time, disappearances were scattered, disconnected. Different neighborhoods, different ages, different circumstances. No one was looking for a pattern yet. Police reports gathered dust in filing cabinets. A missing girl here, an unidentified body there. The descriptions varied, but the violence shared a quiet brutality. Victims were strangled, sometimes assaulted, sometimes left in remote areas, sometimes buried. Evidence was minimal. Witnesses were unreliable. And the man responsible kept moving, adapting, refining. He studied the system the way a student studies an exam. He learned what left traces and what vanished. In 1968, a young girl was lured into his apartment. She survived, barely. She escaped by jumping from a window, screaming for help as neighbors watched in shock. Alcala was arrested, charged, convicted. The system exhaled in relief. Justice, it seemed, had been served. He was sentenced to prison. The file was closed. But the story was only pausing, not ending. Inside prison walls, Alcala did not change. He observed, he waited, he learned patience. And then, through a series of procedural failures, overcrowding, and misplaced optimism, he was paroled, released back into the same society that had almost caught him. His name faded from active memory. The threat was downgraded. Files were archived. He walked free. By the mid-1970s, Alcala had resurfaced again, this time with sharper edges sanded smooth. He enrolled in film school. He volunteered at youth camps. He built credibility. He blended into progressive, creative spaces where trust was currency. And then, in 1978, he stepped into a brightly lit television studio that would later horrify a nation. The dating game set was cheerful, artificial, drenched in pastel colors and canned laughter. Alcala sat behind a partition, his voice calm and playful as he answered questions from a young woman searching for love. He joked, he flirted, he performed. The audience laughed. Producers nodded approvingly. He won. On camera, he was charming. Off camera, the woman felt uneasy. She declined the date. She would later say there was something wrong with him. Something cold behind the smile. She trusted her instinct. Many others never had the chance. At the same time, Alcala was joking on television. Police departments across California were quietly linking unsolved murders. The victims were young. Many had last been seen with a man offering photography work. Sketches emerged. Descriptions overlapped. A task force formed, slow and underfunded, sifting through years of reports, photographs, and forgotten leads. Alcala's name resurfaced, like a stain that never fully washed out. The break came not from a confession or a dramatic chase, but from storage lockers. Thousands of photographs, women, girls, some smiling, some confused, some terrified. Faces frozen in time, moments before disappearance. Investigators stared at the images in silence, realizing they were looking at a catalog of victims, known and unknown. Evidence of crimes never reported. Lives interrupted without witnesses. Interrogations followed. Alcala remained calm, polite. He corrected detectives on small details, as if discussing a script rather than murders. When pressed, he smiled. When accused, he deflected. His intelligence became a weapon, exploiting every procedural gap. Trials stretched for years. Convictions were overturned on technicalities. Families waited. Some died before hearing verdicts. In courtrooms, the atmosphere was suffocating. Prosecutors spoke of patterns of opportunity, of predation. Defense attorneys spoke of doubt. Jurors stared at photographs they could not unsee. Alcala represented himself at times, cross-examining witnesses with chilling precision. He asked victims' families questions about their daughters. He seemed to enjoy the control, the attention, the theater of it all. Years passed. Appeals were filed. Sentences delayed. The justice system moved with grinding slowness. while the weight of his crimes pressed heavier with each revelation. Finally, decades after the first body was found, the machinery aligned. Convictions stood. Death sentences were issued. Alcala was confined, stripped of movement but not memory. Even then, questions remained. How many victims were never found? How many faces in those photographs still had no names? How many chances were missed? His case became a study in institutional failure of parole systems, insurgency communication, and the dangerous assumption that predators look like monsters. Rodney Alcala died in prison, not by execution, but by time. No final confession. No complete list, just silence. The photographs remain in evidence rooms, locked away, waiting for someone to recognize a face, to connect a name, to close a wound that never fully healed. Outside, the world continues. Television reruns play. Dating shows still promise love. Cameras still flash. And somewhere, in the quiet space between trust and danger, his story lingers as a reminder that the most terrifying threats are often the ones that smile back, ask polite questions, and wait patiently for the door to close.